Hello, I'm Hans Lee from Livewire Markets, and this is The Pitch. And if there is any subject that has set markets alight in the last 12 to 18 months, chances are it's artificial intelligence. In fact, it's become such a big theme that it's now one of the 5 big themes that Hari Balkrishna of T. Rowe Price is eyeing most closely this year. Hari manages the Global Impact Equity Fund at T. Rowe Price, and he is joining us out here from London. Hari, great to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
So, with this AI theme in mind, which will be the subject of today's episode, maybe I'm interested just to get your view as a professional investor. What do you think is one thing that investors are getting right about AI as an investment opportunity?
So, with a qualification that obviously with an impact fund, I'm looking for companies that positively impact, the environment and society. So obviously I'm looking at AI from that lens, right? Much more than others. So if I were to say the one thing that investors are getting right, it's about the promise of the technology. And when I think about it from an impact perspective, it could be things like accelerating clinical drug trials. It could be things like providing education in underserved communities, which do not exist today. So I think that's one thing that investors are getting right.
Okay, so that's one thing investors are getting right. What is one thing then that you think investors are getting wrong?
I think, and again, we don't traffic in some of the pure play AI names because of our mandate, but
sure.
The one thing if I were to say would be the speed with which investors are expecting the return on investment on these massive AI capex bills to sort of come to fruition, right? So hundreds of billions of dollars of capex on GPUs and AI, and eventually I think the promise will come through, but in the very near term, I think there's a lot of excitement about monetization sort of being very immediate, which is very typical. I mean, you saw this, I'm not drawing parallels, but you saw this, 25 years ago during the dot-com boom as well, where eventually we ended up with a lot of the technology, but there was a lot of, excitement initially.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. And that cost of power is a theme that does keep coming up. So with your mandate, I'm really curious about this then. So what relationship does impact investing have with the broader AI megatrend?
So when I think about the AI megatrend, I think it's here to stay, because I do think in the long term, a lot of these, positive technologies and positive impact things will happen. But in the here and now, and maybe even for the sort of very sort of, near to midterm, that AI development is coming at a cost to humanity and the planet, right? So when we think about the build out of data centers, we think about, how energy intensive GPUs tend to be. There's a lot of heat dissipation from data centers, and also the way the data centers get powered becomes a big issue. So there's some estimates that by 2026, data centers are potentially going to be utilizing the same amount of energy and electricity as the country of Japan.
Yeah.
So from an impact perspective, that's a problem, because if that is here to stay, that is basically compounding a lot of the issues we already see in terms of global warming, climate change. And so we're actively seeking out companies that we believe have solutions to combat that problem. And the good news is there's a few.
You referred to your mandate a little earlier. I'm glad you did, because this leads on to a question that I really wanted to ask. Your fund does not own NVIDIA, which I think few people would argue is probably the poster child of this artificial intelligence trade. But it's interesting that in your documentation, you don't own NVIDIA because it does not fit your investment framework. How so?
So, if you think about our mandate, right? Our mandate is not about finding stocks and justifying an impact thesis. It's about proactively finding the companies that are creating environmental and social solutions for those environmental and social problems, right? So if you take what I said earlier about artificial intelligence and the issues with heat dissipation, how it gets powered, instead we own the solution providers to solve for those problems, right? And what I mean by that is, so we own a company called Train Technologies that actually supplies data centers with cooling technology, right? Ditto a company called Vertiv that does the same thing, as well as liquid cooling for data centers, right? So preventing that heat dissipation. We also would own a company like Brookfield Renewable Partners that has signed one of the largest corporate PPA agreements with Microsoft. As Microsoft's building out all these data centers, Brookfield will power those data centers with renewable power. So that's more the ilk of the kind of stocks we're looking for. NVIDIA by itself, I think, has a lot of good things. GPU compute is definitely more efficient than CPU compute. But in an ideal world, we're looking for companies with a stronger impact thesis.
So you mentioned those stocks there. Just to tie it all together with those stocks you mentioned, you're kind of more, would I be right in characterizing this in the picks and shovels as opposed to the manufacturers or the producers?
Well, it's not so much picks and shovels as it is really genuinely targeting companies that are generating the solutions for the problems that are getting created. So, like I said, NVIDIA GPU chips are more efficient than CPU chips, but in mining those GPU chips, we're creating a heat dissipation problem and compounding the global warming issues. So let's instead own the companies that fix or solve for the global warming issue coming out of data centers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Balkrishna, thank you very much for joining us there from T. Rowe Price.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us for The Pitch. If you enjoyed that interview, you can subscribe to the Livewire Market Index websites as well as our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.